So first of all, thank you to everybody that is participating in this panel virtually, all of our attendees. Hope to put together an interesting discussion for you guys. And of course, thanks to you three gentlemen for taking the time to sit on the panel with me. What we're going to be talking about today are basically smart litter programs in various environments. Those environments being a city, a university, and a business improvement district. And the reason we got these three gentlemen to participate is because each one of them oversees the Relay Smart Litter program for their organization. So they're going to just talk a little bit about some of the successes and challenges that they've faced so far. So by way of introduction, we have with us Matt Jacob from the City of Pittsburgh. Matt is the Senior Enterprise Applications Administrator for the Department of Innovation and Performance. We also have Vince Martinez. Vince is going to be representing kind of the Business Improvement District environment. Vince is the Senior Manager of Downtown Operations for the Downtown Denver Partnership. Then we also have Chad Peavy with us. Chad is the Assistant Director of Grounds and Landscapes at Old Dominion University. And so with that, Chad, I would like to start with you. Basically, there's a lot of different reasons why someone might go down this path of smart litter collection. For you, what were the big drivers? You know, what problems were you looking to solve?
For me, staffing has always been an issue with having enough. Our campus has grown. It's doubled since I first started working here in terms of acreage and population. It's added, I believe, around 10,000. This is pre-COVID population number. But we went up in people and size, and staffing was still funded to the same level I had when it was smaller. I'm a believer in finding ways to work smarter. Of course, harder, but you want to be smart about it. And I was doing some research on the internet, looking into our litter and sanitation unit and what I could do for them, and came across the Victor Stanley Smart Can when it was, it may have been an inception. You all had created it, but it wasn't widespread yet. So I reached out, and George Blevins, who's I think his title is corporate business developer. Forgive me if I get that wrong, George. But he came back to me, and we began talking. He was going to be in Richmond, Virginia for a convention, and he went ahead and he believed that the can would help us so greatly that he enrolled us in a pilot program for the smart waste technology. And of course, we accepted it. We tried it out. We liked it. The added value benefit to the smart waste can, I mean, that was apparent as soon as I logged into the dashboard. I was like, whoa, sky's the limit. I don't fully understand what I'm looking at just yet, but I knew it had potential. But the side door panel, we had been using the kind of traditional pull the can from the top style with the iron sights. And having the side door, the safety features of having that, I can probably expand on one of the other answers, but that was just really the crux of it, because staff loved it. They loved the side door. They loved the can. Yeah, they too were intrigued with a trash can that could relay data to us, but all of us were in the same boat on how exactly are we going to use this new technology to our benefit. And I'm pleased to say we're discovering new things every day. I'm 100% certain that we're not using it 100% of the way just yet, but it's a learning process, and certainly as we increase the population of those cans on our campus, we'll grow our usage to maximize the potential.
Thank you, Chad. What about you, Vince? What were some of your drivers going down this road initially?
Well, efficiency definitely being a big thing. We not only does the bid pick up have trash receptacles throughout downtown, but the city of Denver also has a number as well. So we have a little bit over 2/3 of the total 315 trash cans that are downtown, or just under 2/3, I should say. And so really just trying to figure out where, one, really kind of get a good mapping of our system and what we have out there. The other part of it is that the city doesn't only comes out once a day early morning. And so we were getting the calls when those city cans would be overfilled. And so, it was kind of an effort to keep track of what we have. I wanted to also work in the city cans as well, and get those so we could understand what we were picking up of theirs and potentially take that operation over for the city. We've kind of, with COVID and everything, I've kind of pulled back on that. I haven't I'm not going to bring in the lids for the city cans. They use that different receptacle as well, that Chad was just talking about. They have the remove from the top. We use the side gate, and I'm not sure that I want to put the relay lids on that remove from the top part just yet, because I think that continual action might lead to some wearing down. So I kind of want to hold back from that. But again, it's still with the intent, just kind of a little bit of a timeout, but still we're experiencing our efficiency, so that's good. But the overall intent would be to one day take over those city cans, have them utilize us as the contractor on that service for them, and then also be able to kind of, we're looking at it with what we have already of our own receptacles. Do we need to reallocate those to different areas, or how do we lay that out? And so we could potentially be able to do that with the city cans as well. So like I say, obviously with COVID, we are trying to rethink that plan, even as well as as we're looking at our data that we have with our receptacles. Is it something to even consider maybe just moving out all of the city cans altogether, and utilizing the 250 or so cans that we have, and just reallocating those throughout downtown? So again, starting to really get that data. But again, the initial intent has had to change a little bit, but we'll see over the next few weeks, months, how that changes, or if it does at all.
Got it. I want to go to you next, Matthew. Now, Pittsburgh is the largest relay deployment currently. You all have about 1,300 of these smart litter receptacles. So can you just talk a little bit about how you all were collecting waste before relay and sort of what issues you were running into with that?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, that's correct. We have about 1,300 of the censored litter receptacles. Pretty much any garbage can that's in the city right of way, or is a smart garbage can, or we have a few in parks as well now. The only area we actually don't have smart litter cans in the right of way is actually in our downtown business district, because we also have a similar partnership and a different kind of process as Denver. So that's an interesting topic to cover as well. Though one day we do hope to replace all the central business district cans with smart garbage cans. Prior to the deployment of the smart garbage cans, our process for collecting garbage is that we have 5 geographic streets maintenance divisions in our Department of Public Works. And each of those divisions had one or numerous crews that was responsible for collecting garbage on different shifts. And essentially, those crews would just drive to every single litter can in their division, look at the litter can to see if it was empty or full, and if it had garbage in it, they would collect it, and just do that for an entire shift. Some of our divisions have cans on the very edges of the city, in very remote places. Some have close to 400 cans, and it's very hard for a crew to make it to every single can if they're doing that process. So we definitely knew that we operate on a hypothesis that for one, it was inefficient in terms of, going to cans that were empty frequently just to check to see if they were full or not, right? And then the other thing we were operating on the assumption of is that we weren't providing a great level of service if we weren't able to make it to every single can every day, just based on the sheer number of cans we have. So our goal moving forward, which we're starting with this year, and it's been a bit of a challenge to get this in place for a variety of kind of organizational reasons, is that we are centralizing all of our street garbage collection into one group that's just going to be entirely responsible for covering the entire city, rather than spreading it out across all 5 of our street divisions. So that group will be entirely responsible. They'll be using the software, and we definitely know we're going to see a big labor savings, because this group is much smaller than the amount of crews we would have otherwise. And of course, that labor savings, we're not removing jobs, right? We have plenty of other stuff we can do. So our streets divisions, we believe, are pretty excited that they'll have some resources returning to them for other tasks that they can't always get to in a timely fashion.
Got it. Vince, I wanted to come back to you. You alluded a little bit to, obviously, this pandemic that we're all living through, the reason we're doing this conference virtually. So have you seen any impact either on the data or just on your collection process from this pandemic, you being in a downtown area?
More so just, the pedestrian foot traffic that we just don't see anymore. We also have just outside of our district, on the border of our district, is Coors Field. So, that was, I was looking forward to getting the data from that area we won't be seeing that. So, things like that. So we've kind of changed up our staffing. A lot of our large route trash collection was happening overnight. There's just no need for them to be out overnight right now. So we've reallocated that to daytime. We're able to use it again. What we do have out there in the field, deployed in the field right now, is been helpful in letting our guys know where they need to be, since they kind of have to do it in not necessarily a faster time, but it's not just going up and down the streets anymore now. We're able to use the data that we are getting to let our guys know where they need to be. Obviously, we're not having to pick up as often as well per trash can, but the difference that we're seeing, like I say, is just more in the fact that we've reallocated our people. We can get a little bit of an idea of the data that we have that we're starting to get. We can get a little bit of an idea, but really, these as we have just finished installing the second phase of our what we consider 3 phases right now. So, like I said, we're kind of stalling at phase 2, but so we were some of that, about 100 or so cans, we're just now starting to get information on. There's another 105 that we had from last year that we're compounding the data on. But again, it's one of those where the data that we're seeing from this round is probably going to somewhat have to be kind of thrown out in the end when we're starting to really do that. So we'll really start to see, hopefully next summer, next spring, we'll start to see those numbers come back, and we can start getting some info. And like I say, things like most of our sports facilities are just outside of downtown. We've got the theater district area, our convention center area, and those kind of things where we have trash cans out there that we're trying to get the information from as well. And again, let us know what the traffic is like. But like I say, right now, just on our 16th Street pedestrian mall, kind of our spine of our downtown, while the numbers are up, we are still showing pedestrian counts at about 75% of what they are down, 75%, I should say. So at one point that was 90%, 95% down on daily traffic. So at least we're increasing, but again, the numbers that we're seeing just aren't really valid towards what every day is going to be. So, and again, like I say, we can take the information that we see now, know where there's an overflowing trash can, know where there's problems. We have also had issues with demonstrations, riots. Most of it has been kept out of our downtown itself. It's happening in the center city, but we've been able to find out when we have trash cans on fire, those kind of things. So I got to tell you, the first weekend of protests and riots was about 10 days or so after we started deploying the new trash cans. And in one of the videos that we had of our on our newscasts, it was just outside of our district, on the other side of the road of our district, basically, and they have a very similar trash can there with the lid. And I could see it on the TV that trash can was on fire, and I was like, oh, please don't let that be one of the trash cans, and they moved it over there. But it has, a lot of them were in that area, we're able to deploy when we were having heavy protests, heavy riots. 5 o'clock in the morning when our crews were out here, we were checking up that trash list and seeing where we needed to send that trash truck right away to make sure that we were able to get to those things. So in that sense, it's been helpful to have that number or that data right at our fingertips and not have to go all the way around the district trying to search these things out. So that's been very helpful. But like I say, the study data that we were really hoping to analyze isn't going to really quite be there for a bit still.
Got it. Thank you, Vince. Chad, I'd like to come back to you. I know you've talked about expanding out your relay deployment, getting some additional smart litter receptacles. I just want to ask you, what benefits have you seen so far, and sort of what would success look like to you in a smart litter deployment?
Sure. So as I alluded to in my first answer, for me, my favorite success from is the staff like it. They like interfacing with the cans better. They prefer having the alerts. That was a bit of a learning curve at first. Not everyone is as technologically adept or as other people. So that was a bit of a curve on how they can utilize it with a smart pad or phone, something of that effect. But overall, the staff love it. So that was the best benefit I saw. I want to keep my people happy and have them realize that management isn't just a talking head, that we want to walk that talk on keeping our people outfitted properly with the best we can offer them. The other way is on our capital outlay projects. When we're putting up a new building, as we are expanding, it really just fell on experiential knowledge of myself and my litter and sanitation supervisor to say, 5,000 users of a building, we think it's going to be this many cans outside, and it was a guessing game. So recently in 2019, we opened our new stadium for the first time. We built a new football stadium. And while it was going up, I was able to work with the architects to better project how many cans we need. We did purchase the smart relay cans for the outdoor areas of this stadium. And it was much easier to project based on some of the data we had collected off the existing cans here on campus. So that was a huge benefit on targeting the right amount of site furnishing to purchase for a project of that size. And I was pleased with the response that the architecture team and the general contractor had for the final look of the cans. They're aesthetically pleasing as well. And truly that the benefit for me is as our upper leadership has changed, it used to be hard for me to explain why I would want to purchase software where a trash can can send me an email. That wasn't as readily understood by some, but now as we've moved forward with it and kind of the proof is in the data, we've been able to make it an easier sell. So when you're laying out a budget and you're able to really quantify as well as qualify what that value of a product is, it's helpful. And just by sheer presence and use, these cans kind of do a lot of that work for me. So I would say those three are the largest benefits that I've experienced.
Great, thanks, Chad. Matt, I'd like to come back to you. You mentioned earlier about just being able to use fewer resources to still collect all the trash that needs to be picked up. So for you all, basically, what did those savings look like, either financially, or what are you able to do with the freed up resources that you now have? How are you still using those folks to do other things with the city?
Yeah. So with the prior process, in terms of our street divisions, we'd say in a given day, we probably have 20, 24, 25, people dedicated to just collecting street garbage cans across all three shifts. We're planning to reduce that number to about 8. So, that makes it possible that we can either respond to citizen requests in those street divisions for other things. We can, put those people on other tasks like patching potholes, clearing weeds, other tasks that our street maintenance divisions perform. In addition to that, we are creating another specialty division, kind of similar to the street litter can division, that's going to be responsible for cleaning up vacant lots. So that's something we definitely have had a challenge with getting to before. There are a decent amount of vacant lots that become overgrown, or people dump garbage on them and things like that. Some of them are privately owned, and so there's a whole process for doing the cleanup of those lots. But now we can actually focus a lot more resources on those, rather than having to take our streets divisions away from other jobs in order to do that. And in addition to that, I did want to kind of circle back to the point about seeing differences in patterns as a result of COVID. Anecdotally, our parks are certainly experiencing a lot more foot traffic because it's one of the few things people feel like they can do pretty safely as a different activity than being inside their house all day, right? So we definitely anecdotally can say that our parks are receiving a lot more foot traffic and activity. our smart can deployment in the parks was done over the fall, so we can't really compare data from this year to last summer. However, our park division that uses the cans has reported some great feedback on it, that they have cans that are in very remote places, very hard to access places. They might have to drive a fairly large pickup truck down a trail very slowly to be safe, of course, with all the people on the trail. So not having to go to that can frequently to check it is very beneficial to them, and they can focus on other things, keeping the park maintained, especially now that we have so many more people in them. And the better we can keep it maintained, the fewer complaints we'll get, and people will be happier with the park. So
great, thanks, Matt. That was really good information about all of the different benefits and successes that you all have seen from the deployment. But of course, there are always going to be challenges and difficulties with something like this. So Vince, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about any of the challenges that you all have ran into so far with the Smart Litter program.
In the beginning, I think is probably as we started to deploy them, we have enough high rises and skyscrapers, whatnot in downtown that we have a bit of a GIS canyon effect. And so just getting the trash cans in their proper locations and making sure they were there. Our team went out and set them up, and then our contractor, I should say, our maintenance contractor, our clean team as we call them, set them up and got everything, geotagged and everything. And then, my ops team went behind and verified that trash cans were where they're supposed to be. And at times it would be, you'd have to go on a little bit of a search for those if they're not reading right. And, one might be a couple of blocks away. One might be, just down the block that was supposed to be reading here or something like that. So that was a bit of a challenge, just figuring out on the map where we needed to go, where, which one was this again, and just and a lot of times we were doing it from our phone, basically in real time, trying to locate it. So it got in that just dealing with your phone and trying to find a map and figure out where you are. And of course, this was happening in the peak of our summer as well. So 95 degree days going on with strong sun in the Mile High City. So, that I would say that's probably about the biggest issue that we've seen. Otherwise, I've seen, the lids, like I said, we retrofitted the cans that we already had with the side panels and brought in the lids themselves. And they've been durable. They've stood up. As I mentioned, a few have been in trash can fires and are still reporting the data to us. And I haven't really had many other troubles with it, I should say, challenges, even to the fact that in this budget period where it's slash and burn in all of our budgets, I'm sure, the continued relay subscription, and if I had been buying more trash cans this year, that wouldn't have been stopped. It would have been seen as a benefit and something that would have been not been cut, basically. But luckily, we didn't have to worry about that. But again, we're keeping the subscription. We keep what we have, and again, we just really haven't had that many issues, and there hasn't been much negative feedback from my superiors about keeping up with the program.
Got it. Matthew, let me ask you the same question. With this large of a deployment, you run into any other challenges or difficulties sort of beyond what Vince mentioned there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of our challenges have been mostly organizational change and process change to kind of use the technology to its full potential. We definitely still would see benefits from it without those changes. However, we really want to get, of course, the most value out of it, right? So those changes were either, convincing people to change their processes, or we had to go through, labor negotiations for our specialty division and things like that. So those were certainly challenges that kind of slowed down using it to its fullest potential. So I'm definitely really excited that we've overcome those organizational challenges, and we're going to be moving forward with that, with all the, kind of the ideas we had to use this to its full potential this year. With such a large deployment, certainly a logistical challenge was just the rollout of all of them. We also had, we retrofitted some of our existing cans because we did already have the SD4E2s out on the street. So some cans we had to just put a lid with a sensor in it on, and then others we had to replace. So doing that across the entire city was one challenge. And of course, financially, we had to split it up across numerous budget years. So it was a pretty long and phased approach. And we didn't really want to do it piecemeal. So as we kind of brought one area of the city on, we didn't necessarily want that group to start using the software until we had everybody else kind of ready to go, so that we could all do it at the same time. So those were our challenges, both logistical and some process change.
Thanks, Matt. Chad, I want to ask you a similar question, but maybe a little bit more forward-looking and perspective. So if you were to expand this deployment out, what are some challenges that you're worried about facing? You know, maybe you haven't encountered them yet, but what would you be worried about in going forward with this?
In moving forward, the challenges I could see would be the review process from the contract side of the service agreement is fairly slow, and on many university campuses, this one included, a lot of times there are departments or divisions that are broken up and separate from state funded, which is the piece I work for, and that makes it difficult to sometimes get others to be willing to put in the time to go through that procurement process and keep up with the campus standards. But we did have the cans, the relay cans, added to our architectural standards, which has made that easier. That was a large effort from myself and the university architect. So that tore down one of those challenges, and one of my concerns up to that point was what happens if people are buying a bunch of different cans for different properties, and then the staff has to run off two different collection models, which is clearly inefficient and wasteful and doesn't provide the best service. So that was my biggest concern. We've gotten through that. As we deploy, perhaps the training of staff. So in my division, litter and sanitation is only one of the work units, and sometimes because of the size of my staff, maybe a gardener or a turf technician may end up finding themselves collecting the waste on a day if so many people are out for one reason or another. And this has been common during COVID as I've lost work units due to people being with their families. And so the training has been a challenge in terms of time to get them out. That may only be a consideration for someone with a mixed use service profile like I have here at a university setting. But otherwise, once we got going, the staff can kind of train one another, because it is short of the initial burst of info, it is fairly easy to get a hold of and get a grip. And like we were hearing, that you can pull up a map on your phone and go right to the spot and see where the can is, or you can set up the email frequency for, do you want it at 60%, which is where I like to keep it, so we can get the can at a reasonable time as opposed to wait until it's visually overflowing. Or my litter and sanitation supervisor, he has it set at 30%, so he can kind of see the wave building, if you will, and know how to deploy staff. But the training and the like I said, we cured the procurement issue, but the training, we still have some work to do on that. That's been one of the unexpected challenges. So expanding the number of units that we have on the campus, I need to get better at cracking that nut of how to train more people in a shorter amount of time.
I want to add to that if possible. I would definitely, the challenge of standardizing your litter cans was something we experience as well. We have a variety of private development, state development of streetscape projects that happen within the city. So before we started this project, we probably had about 20 different types of litter cans out on the street, right? And it was just a mess. And so we definitely want to add to our right-of-way manual that you have to get this model of litter can moving forward if you want to do any project that involves installing new litter cans in the city. So that's been useful, and it's been useful because it helps us to expand the program. And in addition to that, Victor Stanley has been really helpful that if someone doesn't really notify us, but if they try to purchase, garbage cans through Victor Stanley that don't have relay in them for a project in the city, they've kind of alerted us to that so that we can make sure that whatever cans we get are actually on our system, so that we can also promise that service when we start using the program as to its full potential, right? And the other challenge has certainly been training, and that's the big benefit for us of centralizing it all, right? It's really hard for me as the kind of the administrator of the program to go train 25 people on shifts that account for the entire day, right? I can't be there at 2 a.m. if they have an issue. So we definitely want to centralize it, have a few people that we would focus the training on so that they become experts as well. And then we don't have to, provide as much hands-on throughout the course of the project.
Thanks, Matthew. Chad mentioned something a minute ago about the different fill thresholds that they're using to decide when to collect these containers. Of course, all that information gets stored on the website through various statistics and data. So Vince, I wanted to come to you and ask, what data are important to keep track of with a smart waste system like this?
Well, right now, really, like I say, it's kind of, we're trying to figure out, we have issues of shopkeepers that use our trash cans rather than go around to the back of the building to use their dumpsters. So I like to see when something's happening at 3 o'clock, spiking fairly often. It's at 3 o'clock, that kind of thing. I like to, I like to see where the trash can levels are. How often are they getting into that 75% level? Does that mean, what's the situation with trash cans around that particular one? Is that the only one for 3 or 4 blocks or something? What's going on there exactly? And again, I'd hope to see something where if something is constantly low, then I could say, let's go ahead and move that one out, which today I can't. If something's constantly low, I can't move it just yet because I don't know what that's going to be. But otherwise, but that's at this point, those are really the kind of things that we're looking for as far as out of my office. Now, I should say my clean team, they're looking more for trying to develop that route throughout the day, being able to send. They have access to it from their office. To all the dashboard information from their office. They're getting the warnings. They have set their levels different than I have set my level of what I want to know, because they're wanting to get out there and make sure that it's not getting to 90% full. It's getting taken care of by the time it's at 75%, and those kind of things. So, in the field, they're looking more for that data information that they need, where they need to go right now, or not necessarily right now, but where they need to be throughout this, half of the day kind of thing. And then, my end, I'm looking more that long range. Do I need a trash can here? Do I need more here? Do I need less over here? Those kind of things. And that's really what we're starting to try and strategize now. Like I say, that we're going to have to delay a little bit more on that, but that's kind of where our main focus is for sure.
Got it. Let me ask you as well, Matt. You all have had this deployment for several years now. Can you talk about anything that you've learned from the data that you've gathered over that time period?
Sure. So, having them deployed, one step that we want to do is also have kind of like a control, so we could see our current process without implementing a lot of process change. So we could get all that data and look and see, how efficient are we? Are we getting every can every day? Are we letting cans overflow for a long period of time without, changing anything? So that we have kind of that validation, especially on the scale of the entire city, right? The other data we're interested in, certainly to echo what Vince said, a big complaint of our crews is that we have either household garbage in litter cans, that people would just prefer to put all their garbage rather than wait for garbage day in a garbage can, which makes it so that it can't be used by other people, and business garbage as well for similar reasons. That's definitely a concern. And whenever we move a garbage can, you'd be surprised that it oftentimes results in someone not being happy about it. So, if we move a garbage can, it's good to have the information to show why we did that, right? Is it never being used, or is it being abused for either by business or household garbage? We provide a service to collect household garbage, and you're required as a business to have a dumpster. So this is not for that purpose, and it's actually kind of making it so that other people can't use it. And so sometimes we end up removing a can. The last thing in terms of data, having an alert if one gets lit on fire is of course useful to know. Although unfortunately in our cases, most of them, if I get the alert, they are not salvageable. We've probably had a couple that have been, but they have not. So we get the alert and we know, but there's really not much we can do after that, aside from replace it. And then one of the last things that we've been interested in the data too is being able to check for compliance. So we don't want our crews emptying garbage cans that are 25% full, ideally. And if we see that they're collecting them when they're that low, we know that they're not actually really, they're not using the program as we intend, right? So we want to make sure they're kind of not going back to their old habits. Like if they go down a street and they're just stopping at every single garbage can when really they should only be going to visit one, because that's the one that they've been told by the system is full. So that's definitely information we're interested in as well.
Got it. Thank you, Matt. I want to pivot a little bit away from data to talk about the environmental side of things. It's one thing we covered in the case study with Pittsburgh. It's not only the operational benefits, but also the environmental benefits from doing a program like this. So I want to just open this question up to the floor. Anybody feel free to weigh in. Basically, how can a smart waste collection system have a positive environmental impact?
I think in my case, especially, I mean, the route was honestly taking the one way that way and then turning around, taking the one way this way and just zigzagging and then having to go up north and south. And, so, I mean, we were putting tremendous amount of miles that just didn't need to be put onto the vehicles. And so, like I said, we still have a number that are out there because we do still help the city with servicing their trash receptacles. So there's a number that, we just kind of hit as we find them or as we're along the routes and everything. But we're not, not as much going back and forth and those kind of things. So, a lot of less mileage. We've always had the policy and, it's up to the individual technicians. But, we've always had the policy that we don't let the vehicles run when we go and hit the 4 different, intersections, if there's one on each corner or something like that. So theoretically, that's not as big of an issue now, but definitely just the zigzagging across an area, going to areas that we don't necessarily need to be, Coors that neighborhood is still a lot of parking lots around it, not as densely populated as some of the areas in downtown. And so going out to that corner in the middle of January every day wasn't as necessary. A lot of our entertainment areas in normal situations, we're there Thursday through Sunday, really cleaning up heavily, but not really a big reason to go out Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, and hit those trash cans. And we now know that we don't necessarily have to be there. So definitely a big help there.
Got it. Chad or Matthew, any other thoughts on a positive environmental impact? Feel free to weigh in.
I think for us with the model, it was no different than what we've heard already. Vince has mentioned just go up and down the street. We ran on a grid network for our shifts, and truly, if in order to avoid pulling a can at 25% full, we try to say, well, if it's half full, we'll realize pretty quickly that the definition of half full is different for each employee. And so you get down to where if it's visually overflowing, well, we're there too late. But also when something's visually overflowing, I'm already in a city. So loose garbage blowing across the sidewalks and the building surfaces, that's a problem that we just don't want to have. So having that relay tell us when it's X amount full, depending on whatever the person sets it at, we can get there before it's overflowing and that litter is going down the street. For Old Dominion University, we're situated between 2 rivers, one on the east and one on the west. So there's a really high likelihood that if we have loose garbage on a sidewalk or a street, it's going to end up in a storm drain and eventually make it to those estuaries. Can I say definitively that we've seen a decrease in that? The rivers are clearly shared by more users than just Old Dominion, but I like to think that we're working on it and we're getting there. And the city officials that I work with in a partnership on water quality items they're happy to see it too. I don't know if I've convinced them to take that step toward the relay can yet or not, but I am certain that visualizing the potential for what we are doing here, good things catch on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would echo the same things about one, fuel savings or, not adding as much mileage onto your equipment. And in addition to that, I was going to mention as well, yeah, we want to get to garbage cans before they're overflowing and, make sure that we don't have garbage blowing into the street as a result of us not servicing them, right? Same idea. We have storm drains all over the city that ultimately a lot of them will drain into a river. So if we don't get that garbage, there's a good chance it's going, somewhere it shouldn't be. Another idea that I've wanted to pursue is really looking at those heavily used cans for candidates for co-locating with recycling. We don't have recycling in every location where there's a garbage can. It's not as large of a service that we provide on the street level as collecting garbage. However, I think it's a pretty fair assumption that if you have garbage cans that are really heavily used, and there's not a recycling can near it, you probably have a lot of recyclable products inside that garbage can. So you might really want to look at those for candidates to also put a recycling bin near there to try to at least get some of that and divert it.
Thanks, Matt. Vince and Matthew have both talked a little bit about some of their long-term plans for this appointment. So I'm going to come back to you, Chad. If you could just talk a little bit about your sort of long-term plans and goals for how you might like this to look going forward a year, 3 years down the line.
Certainly, I think my only problem with the cans right now is I just simply don't have enough of them. So I would like to expand the population of the site furnishings that we have in those cans and get them into more locations where the data will provide us a lot of site usage analysis. And by that, for instance, this year with our beautification project, which is to do the aesthetic enhancements for the public, I've actually noticed in one can in particular, it's a rather dull, visually unappealing location, just an urban street corner, but it is immensely more popular than I would have ever known if left to guess. And so we've decided to, based on the data of how often that can is being used, people are clearly hanging out there. So we're going to take that data and beautify that location this year. So that's one way the can had an externality that affected for the positive some other budget goal and objective. So it does beg the question, well, what else do I really not know about? And where else are the population going that we need to target for better service? So that's what I'd like to see by expanding it. And that would be one of my goals, is to not just to obviously capture litter that people are creating, but to use the cans strategically so we can get some more data and build a better model of the behaviors of our constituents here. And I think that, combined with finding a way, I don't have to create the way, it exists, but just getting the data from the smart waste receptacle layered into things like our tree management program, which is somewhat similar to the smart waste in format. We also have an irrigation system program that's similar. So how can I kind of layer these data packages together and get something more comprehensive? And then once that's done, what do I do with it? I can give it to the public. I can use it as a training tool. It can be used to justify budgets. It's really kind of the sky's the limit, if you will. And it'll just give us a better understanding of how to optimize our service performance for the public that we're here to serve.
Got it. Thank you, Chad. Continuing on the theme of kind of forward looking, Vince, I did want to ask you a question that is a little bit speculative, but what is a feature that this system could add that might benefit your specific operation?
Well, I mean, it's something that you guys already have. We saw it in the demo, and it's one of the things that we're looking at. Our economic development department is and working with me, and I told them about it. Is pedestrian counting, and so we'd like to really be able to try and use that in our outer districts as we, let's get this thing set up and running and everything. But I think that's something that we're looking at. Especially when you look at the full bells and whistle options. I'm not sure that there's really much that you guys are missing out on just yet, or that I can think of off the top of my head. It's really the limits are based on what our budgets have been basically, and so what's our capacity to take on more. But I can't think of anything really offhand that's really that would help operations more, I guess you could say. One of the issues we have that our guys dealt with at the very beginning was just the fill level spikes. We found out when you put the garbage bag in there and it's a windy day, all of a sudden that if it's empty, that it looks to the sensor like it's full. And so our guys at the very beginning were constantly heading over to trash cans they had just emptied and dealing with that. But so I would say if it's anything, it's just how does smart technology, how does that type of sensor know the difference between environmental elements that happen and what's truly trash in the trash can or those kind of things. So but that's probably just an issue with technology all around, is being able to make those slight decisions that we can see with our human eye that a sensor can't necessarily make out. But otherwise, like I say, the main thing that we've been looking at, that we've had an interest in, is that pedestrian counter. And we think we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have pedestrian counters through a wayfinding system on our 16th Street pedestrian mall. But once you step off of that, we have really no ideas of what's happening in our downtown as far as who's walking around, when what times they're around and those kind of things. So I think that's something we're looking forward to really bringing into the fold.
Well, thank you, Vince. Matt, I'd like to kick that same question over to you. Anything you can think of in terms of features to the system that might benefit you guys up there in Pittsburgh?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, moving forward, I think, to also go off of what Vince said, we're interested, in the potential capabilities of other types of sensors that can be added to the litter cans. One of the big benefits and one of the things that you kind of look for with smart city technology is something that's ubiquitous around your city, that's located in a lot of areas and a lot of diverse different areas. You also, of course, need a power source. So we have litter cans everywhere. There's no type of street that we don't have a litter can on, and there's no real neighborhood basically that we don't have a litter can in. So potentially adding sensors would be for other things like air quality or pedestrian counters would be something we might be interested in the future. It might be something that some of the city's partners are interested in as well. We partner with the universities like Carnegie Mellon, and they're always interested in trying to do some, smart city projects, and having that infrastructure already in place that we can kind of just hit the ground running with it would be great. Another benefit has been the API of the system that we share publicly. So any citizen can go look at the data about our litter cans, or university or students if they want to do like a class project or something like that. If they have any ideas, we try to work with them. So that's one thing. And then, in terms of some other stuff, we're definitely really excited about the app development that's going on. I don't, hopefully I'm not, not like a spoiler alert here or something. So we're definitely interested in that. I think that could be a really helpful tool. And then of course, the last thing I'd say is perhaps some sort of, work order management system for the litter cans would be useful. It's useful to be able to, add notes and keep a kind of history of it, right? You don't want to have just kind of one section on it that, we currently have the ability to add notes, but you might want to know things that have happened with that can throughout and leave notes about it, because like I said, people notice if you do anything with these garbage cans, right? I mean, if you do anything at all, people will notice, and you might need to put a note like, this household is constantly putting garbage in it, right? Or this business is always doing it, or just, any sort of issues that you've had with the can throughout, just so that you have that reference in the future. And if someone else comes in, that needs to use the information, they have that reference as well.
Got it. Thank you, Matthew. Well, gentlemen, I'm mindful of the fact that we just hit our 50-minute time limit for this panel. So that's about the extent of the questions that we're going to cover today. Of course, when this airs finally, we will be able to do a Q&A session with the audience for this. So I hope you all can join me for that. Let me just say thank you one more time to Vince, Chad, and Matthew. Thank you for joining me. We had a great conversation here, and now will be the time for the questions. So thank you, guys.